Hey, English learners, welcome back to Ease English Podcast, your cozy little place to learn easy English through real, everyday conversations. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jake.
And before we start properly, Jake has already said something annoying.
Annoying or correct?
No, annoying. Very annoying.
Interesting. I remember it differently.
Of course you do. Go on then. Say your terrible opinion again.
Fine. I said a very beautiful person can become much less attractive in about 10 seconds if they have no confidence.
See? That is exactly the kind of sentence that starts arguments.
But tell me I'm wrong.
I'm not saying you're fully wrong. I'm saying you said it with way too much confidence for a person who still double-checks simple restaurant menus like there might be an exam later.
That is unrelated and also unfair.
No, it is very related. We are discussing confidence. I am bringing evidence.
Wow, so now you're analyzing my personality in public.
Yes. Welcome to today's episode.
All right, fair enough.
But honestly, this question is so interesting to me because everybody says looks matter, and obviously they do.
Right, of course they do. We are not going to sit here and pretend people do not notice beauty.
Exactly. People notice beauty very quickly, sometimes in 1 second.
But what happens after that first second is where things get interesting.
Yes, because sometimes someone is beautiful, but the moment they start speaking or the way they carry themselves feels cold, awkward, or deeply uncomfortable, the whole impression changes.
And sometimes it changes fast.
Very fast.
One strange sentence can do serious damage.
Honestly, yes.
And then the opposite happens too, which I think is even more powerful. Someone may not be the most striking person in the room at first, but then they speak with ease, they seem relaxed, they make people comfortable, and suddenly they become the one everyone remembers.
Yes, and that is why this topic feels bigger than just beauty. It is really about presence, energy, self-respect, and the feeling someone creates around themselves.
Exactly, because confidence is not only about looking bold or sounding loud. A lot of the time, it is quieter than that. It's in the posture, the eye contact, the comfort, the way someone does not seem to be begging the room to approve of them.
That was good. Slightly suspiciously good.
Thank you. I prepared one intelligent sentence before recording.
Just one?
All right, don't push it.
Fair enough. But honestly, today we are asking a question that sounds simple, and yet it says so much about people. Is confidence more attractive than beauty?
And we're not asking that in a shallow way. We're asking what really holds attention after the first impression is over.
What makes someone memorable?
What makes somebody magnetic?
And what makes somebody ruin the whole thing in one conversation?
Also important, very important.
So tell us in the comments, and please be honest. In real life, what feels more attractive to you? Beauty, confidence, or both?
And no hiding behind "it depends," because that answer has escaped too many conversations already.
Yes, we want commitment today.
Also, this is a B2 level episode, so you'll hear more natural opinions, slightly longer ideas, and useful vocabulary around confidence, attraction, and first impressions.
But do not worry if you don't catch every single word. You do not need perfect understanding to enjoy the conversation and learn from it.
Just stay with the meaning, follow the emotion, and let the English come to you naturally.
And later in the episode, we'll have our calm word tour, where we go through some really useful words, idioms, and phrasal verbs from today's discussion.
So by the end of the episode, you'll have better language than just saying, "I don't know, they just have something."
Even though that sentence is still doing a lot of work in real life.
It really is.
All right then, let's begin properly.
Anna, when it comes to real-life attraction, what do you think lasts longer? Beauty or confidence?
I think beauty gets attention faster, but confidence lasts longer. Beauty can make people look at you in a second, But confidence is often what makes people keep looking without even realizing they're still looking.
Yes, that feels very true to me, because beauty can absolutely turn heads.
Right. And if something turns heads, it means it gets immediate attention. People notice it straight away.
And let's be honest, that part is real. We are human. We notice a beautiful face. We notice style. We notice presence. That first reaction is normal.
Yes, completely. I think sometimes people try too hard to sound deep, like beauty does not matter at all. But it does matter. The first glance has power.
Right. A strong jawline can absolutely win a glance,
Yes.
but it cannot carry a whole conversation.
No, it really cannot. At some point, the face needs help from the personality.
Exactly. And that is where things get interesting, because after the first glance, attraction starts changing shape.
Yes, it becomes less about what you are looking at and more about what you are feeling around that person.
Which brings us to something I think matters even more after those first few seconds.
Presence.
Right. And presence is the feeling or impact a person has when they are around you. It's not only about what they look like, it's about what it feels like to be near them.
And that is why two people can be equally beautiful, but one of them stays in your mind and the other one disappears almost immediately.
Yes, one catches your eye, the other somehow stays in your memory.
I remember something like that very clearly, actually. A few years ago, I was at a family wedding, and there was this woman who was so obviously beautiful that half the room noticed her the second she walked in.
Mm-hmm.
She looked perfect. The dress, the makeup, the hair, everything. Very polished, very graceful, very cinematic.
Ah, cinematic beauty.
Exactly. But later, I spoke to her for a few minutes, and the whole feeling just faded. Not because she was rude, nothing dramatic. It was just flat. You know that feeling when someone looks like a painting, but the conversation feels like dry bread?
Dry bread is such a cruel image.
But you understand me.
I do. Beautiful face, dry bread energy.
Exactly.
So what happened after that?
Later, that same evening, I met another woman who was not as striking at first glance. She looked lovely, yes, but not in that dramatic movie scene way. But the moment she started talking, the whole room changed around her. She laughed easily, she listened properly, she made people feel noticed. And suddenly, she became the person everybody kept drifting back toward.
That is such a good example.
Yes, because beauty can open the door, but it does not always know how to stay in the room. Confidence does.
Exactly. And honestly, I think English learners know this feeling too. Sometimes learners believe their English needs to sound perfect to make a good impression, but often what stays with people is not perfection. It is calmness, it is willingness, it is the confidence to stay in the conversation.
Yes, a small mistake rarely ruins a conversation. Panic ruins it much faster.
True, one wrong tense is survivable. Looking like your soul has left your body is slightly harder to hide.
That is painfully true.
So that, to me, is the first truth. Beauty may win the first few seconds, but confidence often wins what comes after. And once we say that, the next question becomes really interesting. What does confidence actually look like when it is real?
Yes, because a lot of confidence is visible before it's verbal.
Exactly. Sometimes you notice confidence before someone has said anything important. You see it in the way they stand, the way they pause, the way they look at people without rushing or shrinking.
Yes, you see it in whether they seem comfortable being seen.
And that calm, balanced quality is what I would call poise.
Right, and poise means calm, controlled confidence. It's not noisy, it's not dramatic, it just feels steady.
And honestly, poise is so attractive because it feels like still water. It doesn't need to splash everywhere to prove it's there.
That is beautiful.
Thank you. I have 2 good lines today.
Careful, don't peek too early.
Fair.
But it is true. Real confidence is often quieter than people expect. It is not always in the loudest person. Sometimes it's in the most grounded person.
Yes, and when someone seems balanced and naturally confident, people often say they carry themselves well.
Right. And carry yourself well means to present yourself with confidence and balance through the way you stand, move, and speak.
I actually remember noticing that once in a coffee shop. There was this man standing in line. Very ordinary clothes, nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, but he was so calm. He spoke slowly, he smiled at the barista like he had nowhere else to be, and somehow he stood out more than the most stylish person in the room.
That is so interesting.
Yes, because he looked fully at ease in himself, not trying to impress anyone, just settled. And that calmness made everybody else feel less rushed, too.
Yes, confidence can do that. It can lower the emotional temperature of the whole room.
Which is especially helpful in modern life because everyone already looks like they are late for 3 things and stressed about 4 more.
Very true.
And I think this matters for English learners too, because even when your vocabulary is still simple, your body language is already speaking for you.
Exactly. You may still be searching for words, but if you keep eye contact, breathe, smile a little, and do not collapse into apology, people already experience you differently.
Yes, your English can actually be fine while your shoulders are giving a completely separate speech called "Please forgive me for existing."
Oh no, that is too real.
You know it is.
So yes, confidence speaks long before a polished sentence arrives. But I think there's another emotional layer here too, because beauty can impress people and still lose its power if insecurity starts pouring out underneath it.
Yes, and this is where the topic becomes a little more tender.
It does, because someone can be very beautiful and still not feel safe inside themselves.
Exactly. And when a person becomes more secure in who they often become more self-assured.
Right, and self-assured means secure in yourself. You trust who you are, and you don't need constant approval to feel okay.
And that kind of energy is deeply attractive because it feels peaceful. There's something beautiful about a person who is not fighting themselves every minute.
Yes, that is such a good way to say it. Not fighting themselves.
Meanwhile, someone can look amazing and still seem deeply insecure.
Right, and insecure means not feeling confident or stable in yourself. You keep doubting yourself or needing reassurance or feeling like you're not enough.
And people can feel that even when they cannot explain it clearly. The beauty is there, but the energy feels tight, guarded, almost apologetic.
I actually knew someone like that once. She was genuinely stunning, the kind of person people would look at twice. But every compliment made her uncomfortable, every room made her nervous, every conversation felt like she was secretly bracing for rejection. And after a while, you stopped seeing the beauty first. You started feeling the sadness first.
Wow. Yes, that is really powerful.
It stayed with me because I remember thinking, beauty can decorate the outside, but it cannot calm the inside. Only healing can do that. Only self-acceptance can do that.
And that is why confidence feels so hopeful, actually. Because beauty is something people often treat like a gift, but confidence is something people can build.
Yes, and that is such an important message for English learners, too. So many people think, I'll speak confidently when my English becomes perfect. But often the opposite is true. Your English becomes stronger because you slowly allow yourself to speak before you feel fully ready.
Right. Confidence does not arrive in a little gold box after lesson number 300.
Sadly, no.
Very rude of life, honestly.
Very rude.
But it does grow, slowly, quietly, through awkward conversations, small risks, tiny wins, and those moments when you think, oh, I handled that a little better than last time.
And that is where confidence becomes beautiful in its own way, because it has been built, it has cost something, it has a story inside it.
Which brings us to a very important distinction, because once people hear all this, they sometimes get nervous and think, okay, but what if confidence turns into arrogance?
Yes, and those two are really not the same thing.
Not at all. A confident person usually makes people feel more comfortable. An arrogant person often gives off something heavy.
Right. And to give off means to create or send out a certain feeling or impression.
Exactly. Confidence may give off calmness, steadiness, and self-respect. Arrogance usually gives off superiority, tension, or the feeling that someone is trying very hard to prove something.
Yes, real confidence does not need to push itself into the room. It is just there. It feels settled. Arrogance feels hungry.
Oof, that is good. Arrogance feels hungry.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, arrogance enters the room like it has already written its own award speech.
And practiced it in the mirror
Several times.
with dramatic lighting.
Exactly.
But what is interesting is that truly confident people often have quiet charisma.
Right. And charisma means a natural charm that draws people toward you.
And that charm is not loudness, it is not ego, it is not showing off. A lot of the time, it is warmth, ease, humor, calmness. The feeling that someone is fully themselves and does not need to perform.
Yes, the most charismatic people are often the ones who make other people feel more relaxed, not more intimidated.
And this matters for English learners, too. Some learners hold themselves back because they are afraid that speaking more confidently will make them sound arrogant.
Yes, but speaking clearly is not arrogance. Participating is not arrogance. Taking your place in the conversation is not arrogance.
Arrogance is pretending you know everything. Confidence is simply saying, I belong here too.
That is such an important line.
Especially for people who begin every sentence with, sorry, my English is bad, even when their English is actually doing just fine.
Yes, sometimes the apology is working harder than the English.
Sadly true.
So real confidence feels respectful. It has room for other people. And once confidence becomes that healthy, something beautiful happens. It changes not only how you look, but how people actually experience you.
Yes, and I think this is the deepest part of the whole conversation. Confidence changes the emotional atmosphere around a person.
Exactly. Some people do not simply look attractive. They somehow make the room feel lighter.
Yes, they make people breathe more normally, laugh more easily, speak more freely.
And sometimes that kind of person can really stand out without trying to.
Right, and to stand out means to be more noticeable than others in a strong or positive way.
And the interesting thing is, they often do not stand out because they are demanding attention. They stand out because their energy feels clear, warm, and settled.
I remember meeting someone once who was not especially flashy at all. Very simple clothes, very ordinary look, nothing dramatic. But after 10 minutes, everybody around them looked lighter. People were laughing more, talking more, relaxing more.
That is such a beautiful example.
Yes, because they were not trying to impress anyone. They just had this calm, open way of being that made everybody else feel safe to be more open too.
And that is why some people feel almost magnetic.
Right. And magnetic means so attractive or compelling that people feel naturally drawn to them.
And that, to me, is where confidence becomes more powerful than appearance. It changes comfort, trust, curiosity, connection, all at once.
Yes. Beauty may catch the eye, but confidence changes the whole experience. It changes how long people want to stay, how deeply they want to listen, how safe they feel being real around you.
And honestly, that is true in language learning too. When you speak English with a little more ease and self-trust, people hear your words differently. They feel differently around you too.
Yes, they relax more, you relax more, the whole conversation becomes warmer, softer, more human.
Which is lovely because searching for vocabulary is already enough suffering for one conversation.
Exactly.
We do not need panic as a second language as well.
No, thank you.
So in the end, I think the answer becomes quite clear. Beauty matters, yes, but confidence reaches much further.
Yes, so if I had to answer the question very simply, I would say this. Beauty may open the door, but confidence is often what makes people want to stay.
That is such a strong answer.
Thank you. I prepared at least one intelligent sentence today.
At least one, yes.
And now, before we finish, let's slow things down a little and move into our word tour.
Yes, we used some really useful words and phrases in today's conversation, so let's go through them together in a calm, simple way.
And as always, listen first, then repeat with us.
All right, let's start with our first phrase from today's conversation. Turn heads.
If something or someone turns heads, it means they attract immediate attention. People notice them straight away.
For example, he turned heads the moment he walked into the room.
Or, beauty can turn heads quickly, but confidence often leaves the deeper impression.
Repeat, turn heads.
Turn heads. Next, a very useful word, presence.
Presence is the feeling or impact a person has when they are around others. It is not only about appearance, it is about how they feel to be around.
For example, she has a calm presence that makes people feel comfortable.
Or confidence often gives a person a stronger presence. Repeat, presence.
Presence. Next, let's look at poise.
Poise means calm, controlled confidence. A person with poise does not seem rushed, nervous, or out of balance.
For example, she answered the difficult question with real poise.
Or poise can make someone seem more attractive than perfect looks. Repeat, poise.
Poise. Next, a very natural phrase, carry yourself well.
If you carry yourself well, you present yourself in a confident and balanced way through your posture, movement, and behavior.
For example, he is not loud, but he carries himself well.
Or people often notice when someone carries themselves well. Repeat, carry yourself well.
Carry yourself well. Next, we have self-assured.
If someone is self-assured, they feel secure in who they are. They trust themselves and do not constantly look for approval.
For example, she sounded self-assured without sounding arrogant.
Or a self-assured person often seems more attractive over time. Repeat, self-assured.
Self-assured. Now let's look at the opposite word, insecure.
If someone feels insecure, they do not feel fully confident or stable in themselves. They may doubt themselves a lot or worry too much about how others see them.
For example, he looked confident at first, but later he seemed insecure.
Or even beauty can lose its effect when insecurity becomes very visible. Repeat, insecure.
Insecure. Next, a phrasal verb we use today, stand out.
To stand out means to be more noticeable than others in a strong or positive way.
For example, her confidence helped her stand out in the interview.
Or, in many situations, confidence makes a person stand out more than beauty. Repeat, stand out.
Stand out. Next, another useful phrasal verb, give off.
To give off means to create or send out a certain feeling, energy, or impression.
For example, he gives off a calm and grounded energy.
Or arrogance gives off a very different feeling from real confidence. Repeat, give off.
Give off. Next, a strong word for attraction, charisma.
Charisma means a natural charm that attracts people and makes them interested in you.
For example, she does not try too hard, but she has real charisma.
Or charisma often comes from confidence, warmth, and ease. Repeat, charisma.
Charisma. And finally, a beautiful word, magnetic.
If someone is magnetic, they are so attractive or compelling that people feel naturally drawn to them.
For example, there was something magnetic about the way he spoke.
Or confidence can make a person feel magnetic even without perfect looks. Repeat, magnetic.
Magnetic. And that was our word tour for today.
So next time you want to talk about attraction, confidence, or first impressions, you'll have much better words to express yourself.
And more importantly, you'll understand them when you hear them in real conversations too.
Exactly, because learning English is not only about collecting words, it is also about learning how people really think, speak, and connect.
Yes, and today's topic reminds us of that so clearly. Attraction is not always about what shines first. Very often, it is about what feels real, steady, and human after the first impression fades.
Right. Beauty may catch attention for a moment, but confidence often leaves the deeper mark because it changes the way people experience you.
And maybe that is the nicest part of this whole conversation. Confidence is not something only a few lucky people are born with. It is something people can grow, little by little, as they become more comfortable in who they are.
Which means this is not just a conversation about attraction, it is also a conversation about self-trust.
Yes, about becoming someone who does not need to force attention because their calmness, presence, and self-respect already speak for them.
And honestly, that kind of confidence feels beautiful in its own way.
It really does.
Right. Take care of your English.
And take care of your heart. This is Anna.
This is Jake.